Hey everyone, how's it going? We got a lot to talk about today. Um, there was a poll showing that in the U.S. people don't trust the government to do the right thing. That's not a surprise, I bet, to most people. We got Russia and Ukraine, of course, to talk a bit about. We got some stuff going on with China, as is every day. There's something going on with China. Um, we got a bunch of other stuff too to talk about, stuff relating to the economy, stuff with some of what is going on with some other countries around the world. Uh, Lot going on. So let's get into this. So starting off with that poll. So this poll was showing that people don't trust the federal government here in the US to do what's right. Well, I mean, considering the current administration and their track record over the last just a bit over a year is pretty horrific. I mean, day one when Numbnuts was sworn in, he just did a whole shit ton load of executive orders. He did more executive orders his first month than most freaking presidents do in an entire term. It's and he just basically undid a lot of what the Trump administration did, even though his undoing it wasn't good for the U.S. These idiots just want to undo anything Trump. They don't care. They hate Trump so much. They don't care that what they're doing is harmful to the country. Well, like I always say, these assholes in this administration pulling the strings and these leftists you see on all the fake news channels and all these morons out in the streets protesting all the crap that they protest about. But basically, what they protest, they're not even protesting something that's real. I saw footage of a bunch of idiot high school students, and basically ignore them because they're high school students, but they're basically useful idiots for the leftist agenda. And they were over there in Florida protesting that bill that DeSantis signed, and the people on the left are saying, "Oh, it's a don't say gay bill." Well, first of all, that bill had nothing to do with any impact on high school students, and it doesn't say not to say gay, but that's how the leftists roll, right? They see something that policy that they don't like, and they just go about labeling it some made up bullshit, to give it negative PR, and hopefully that will prevent it from being implemented. Right? They did that same thing with the Georgia voting laws, telling you that it's Jim Crow on steroids. I mean, this coming out of the mouth of Potato Joe. You know, this guy's said more racist things on a mic than I don't know what. I mean, he was all buddy buddy with the frickin' Grand Wizard of the KKK or whatever that guy was. Wasn't it Bird? And he was, and you got a Camel Toe. First she's up there accusing Biden back when they were both running for the election that Joe Biden is a racist and what does she accuse him of? Racist and sexist, or maybe she referenced him as being a rapist. I don't know. And then once he picks her for the color of her skin and what's in between her legs, even though according to them that's not what determines a woman. Well, scientifically what determines a man and a woman is their chromosomes. But you know, these idiots who like to scream and shout, follow the science. They wouldn't know science if science came up and slammed them up their cornhole. Anyways, she gets out there accusing him of all this shit, and then once he picks her, one of the administration's multiple diversity hires, she says how what an honor it is to be his VP. Their stupidity knows no bounds. Anyways, let's move on to situation over there in the Ukraine and Russia. So the U.S. is coming out and saying that Putin is misinformed when it comes to the situation that his military is facing in Ukraine, and that basically he's been surrounded by yes men, and that folks over there in Russia, they're afraid to tell Putin what's really going on, right? Then there's reports that Russian troops aren't carrying out their orders. All this happening while Russia is saying that the US and NATO are targeting Russia with cyber attacks. And then folks are saying, well, whatever Russia is accusing NATO or the US of doing, that means they're on the verge of doing it themselves. That's basic leftist tactics 101. The commies do that. And I'm talking about the Democrat Party when I say the commies, right? They're nonstop. Oh, racist, sexist, this, that, and the other. And they're the only ones that give a rat's ass about race. They're the most racist people in this country, you know? And then they'll accuse whatever the Democrats are accusing their political opponents of. That's a freaking, like Viva Frei always says, that's confession through projection. But anyways, Russia's saying that they're seeing stepped up attempts by the U.S. and NATO to do cyber attacks against them. But over here on our side, the FBI is saying that they're seeing an increase of both Russian and Iranian scanning of critical infrastructure here in the U.S., right? So we have both Russia and Iran. Looks like they're stepping up attempts to do cyber attacks on the critical infrastructure here in the U.S. And all this is going on, but we have the Biden administration continuing to negotiate with Iran via Russia on this bullshit nuke deal. And, what the hell? I mean, on the one hand, you're sanctioning Russia economically, basically committing warfare economically against Russia, and you're going to use them to negotiate with Iran. And I mean, I got a story coming up here in a bit about Iran-backed Houthis stepping up their attacks. So I mean, you're going to enter a deal with Iran while Iran's pulling all kind of shenanigans, and you're going to use Russia as a mediator. Well, they're pulling buku shenanigans too. I mean, it seems stupid to me. Let me know what you think about that. Should we be negotiating with Iran on a nuke deal and using Russia as an intermediary when they're pulling all this bullshit that both of those countries are pulling? Anyways, back with the situation with the Ukraine and Russian war. Germany has come out and said that it's going to act it's willing to act as a security guarantor for the Ukraine. We'll see what happens with that. I mean, that's basically setting up Germany to directly combat Russia. And, I think there's a lot of history between those two countries. Meanwhile, the United States has set red lines for China in regards to China helping Russia dodge the economic sanctions. So some of the stuff going on with Russia is if you're in Russia, you can't use a Visa or a MasterCard. And if you're over there in Russia, gas has to be paid with rubles. And this is just more pushing Russia into the arms of China. And then the freaking Biden administration telling China, hey, we don't want you bailing out Russia. Any red line drawn by this administration is a joke, because we all know this is Barack Hussein Obama administration 3.0. But you got all this going on, and then you have other countries reacting to all this situation, right? I remember under Trump, India was pretty buddy-buddy with the U.S. I think Trump went over to India and they rolled out the red carpet. It was a, very friendly situation. But now with this everything that's going on now, it looks like India is getting closer to Russia. Then you got Tokyo. They had some deal with natural gas with Russia, and they say they're not going to back out of that deal. So not every country's, putting the squeeze on Russia. Then over in North Korea, they did another missile launch test on the other day on the 24th. So there's a lot of crap going on. Over in Israel, in the last week or so, there's been attacks by, I don't know, what are these terrorists, Arab terrorists, Muslim terrorists, whatever you want to call them. It killed 11 people or so in Israeli cities in the last week. Then here in this country, we've had over 840,000 Border Patrol encounters this year. So the southern border is wide open. Biden administration rolls out the red carpet for illegal aliens. As soon as they cross the border, hey, where do you want to go? What you name the city and state, we'll fucking stick you in a bus, take you to the airport, fly you to wherever you want to go, and it's all on me and you, because this is all coming out of our pocketbooks, taxpayer dollars, paying for these people who their first act they did with entering our country was commit a crime. It's illegal just to go into the country. Well, a lot of them are claiming, that they're fucking claiming asylum, that they are refugees. Well, no. If you know what a refugee is, refugees are the Ukrainian people fleeing into Poland and other border countries because there's a war going on and the country that attacked them is targeting civilians. So they're in legit danger of their lives. That's a refugee, not somebody who lives down in, Venezuela and crossed what, 5 or 6 countries at least to get here to the U.S. because they're looking for a better job or free handouts from our numbnut administration, handing out all kinds of crap. Anyways, let's talk about the economy. So, this whole talk about gas prices going up and oil production needing to be increased because of the Russian attack on the Ukraine and all this. Well, a lot of people are talking about, oh, the U.S. should increase oil production, but I haven't heard too many people talking about it. I heard one source mentioning, hey, it's not just oil production that you need, but you also need to increase refining capacity. So, that's something that I wish more people would address, because they tell you that, the energy companies here in the U.S., according to the Jen Psaki types, it's on the oil companies that they should be out here drilling more. Well, my understanding is these companies, they haven't been investing in what it takes to drill more because they don't want the rug pulled out from under them. This administration from day one has been, anti-fossil fuel, and you're telling us that these companies should spend the tens of millions or whatever the cost is to set up all the equipment and whatever investments it takes to drill more. And then, 2-3 months after they finally get operations running up, this administration is going to come out with an executive order or some type of policy that would shut them down. Now they just dropped, multi-million dollars of investment and they'll get nothing on return because this government is anti-fossil fuels. So when Psaki gets up there and says all this bullshit that she says, she knows damn well what the real situation is. She's counting on the ignorance of American people. And unfortunately, she's probably right to a very large extent. So what else is going on with the worldwide economy? So Germany has taken steps towards rationing of goods, beginning with gas. The World Bank says there's debt default on the horizon for developing economies, many of which were already in debt distress prior to the cold and flu season that recently hit the last couple years. So they're saying that it's not a global issue, but that 40% of the world GDP does come from developing economies. But the World Bank says they're going to take mitigation steps, so it's not going to be, too big of a worldwide problem. But they do say that it's looking like a global recession will occur in the next year or so. And whenever there's a global recession, it's always accompanied by a recession right here in the good old US of A, which is kind of if you right now we have real bad inflation, and if you couple that with the recession, I think that's what we had back in the good old days of Jimmy Carter, right? Stagflation, where the economy stagnates, but it's also accompanied with inflation simultaneously. So, not looking too bueno here. So now I'm going to go on to this story when I kind of mentioned earlier about Iran being a bad actor, and should we be negotiating with them on a nuke deal when they're pulling the different types of shenanigans that they pull? So in this instance, the Houthis in Yemen, who are backed by Iran, they did a recent attack on a Saudi energy facilities, and it's just the most recent in a series of escalation of attacks by them. And they say that good old Secretary of State Anthony Blinken condemned the attack, but you would think the State Department would, tell Iran, why don't you put a leash on your goddamn Houthis over there and your other surrogates, and have them stop the shenanigans so that we can negotiate in good faith. Yet the Biden administration just continues to work with Iran on that nuke deal. It's kind of nuts here. And then there was a Russian official that came out and said that Russia will work with Iran regarding sanctions so that they can overcome sanctions. But he wasn't too specific if he was referring to the sanctions that are on Russia right now or the sanctions that are on Iran. Maybe he meant both. Then we got the situation with China. They made a security deal with the Solomon Islands. I guess the Solomon Islands are about 1,400 miles north of Australia. And so this details of this security agreement leaked somehow. And it shows that the Chinese have plans to place military on the island, as well as armed police forces. So this has Australia, New Zealand, other Western allies concerned. And the leaders in Australia and New Zealand are saying this is destabilizing. And it's also an agreement that they're calling a development dimension to it, including expansion of trade and civil aviation services agreements. I can see why Australia's not only concerned, but I would think they're a bit pissed off, because Australia is the biggest donor of aid to the island. They've been increasing the aid to them to try to curtail China's influence in the region. Here's buku bucks, millions of dollars. We're going to help you out, And countries just don't go around throwing money out of the goodness of their hearts to poor regions of the world. They do it because they have interest in the region, and there's always strings attached, or at least there should be, right? I mean, US goes out billions, trillions of dollars over the years to different countries, and for the most part, I mean, we're not doing it, I mean, somewhat to the goodness, from the goodness of our heart, but it's done because there's expectations, right? Like, not necessarily give us this or give us that, but don't buddy up with our rivals, our competitors, our opponents. So Australia gives them all this money, and then they turn around and sign this agreement with China, and now it looks like China's going to be stationing military there. Another concerning item is that I guess the island had some ties to Taiwan. Well, they ditched those. So, more concerning developments over in that part of the world. Now, as far as the U.S. is concerned with this, they did say that it does have plans to reopen the embassy there. I don't know when it closed. I don't know why it closed. Article that I read just said that it's planning to reopen it there. So looks like there's a lot going on. The war in Ukraine. China's always on the move, looking to spread their power and influence around the world. Of course, you got Arab Muslims trying to kill Israelis. That's like it's just a regular thing, right? And I guess that's probably why we don't hear much of it in the news, right? You got to go searching for that type of information. And the economy, economy, we might be on the verge of everyone needing to tighten the belts, right? With if you got a recession and inflation coupled up together there, it's going to be tougher times for everyone involved. So, anyways, just kind of wanted to run down all these stories, uh, let you guys know what I'm seeing out there. Uh, I'll put the links to some of these articles I read down in the description, and I'll probably link to get a lot of information from some podcasts or a couple of YouTube channels that I think are real good too. So I always try to link up those sources in the description. Sometimes I forget, but I always try to, you know, link those things down there. So if you guys want to go and read further or listen to those things and get more detail, it's easily accessible. All right, everyone. Hope you enjoy my video. If so, like, subscribe, and share. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Thanks a lot.